This is a very special video for you today. If you have found yourself perhaps in one of two paths, you may be on a path where you have been a leader for a while and you feel like you're being manipulated, or maybe you're someone that has not felt like you're being manipulated, but you just want to know, what do I need to keep an eye out for in case someone's trying to manipulate me? We're going to talk about it in this live today. If you are new to me, my name is Dr. Jacinta, and if you are one of my absolutely amazing subscribers, welcome back, friend. This channel heavily focuses in on advanced communication skills and strategies that will help you to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. Now, I'm going to share with you in this video what I learned from Machiavelli and from Andrew Carnegie as it relates to how you can avoid being manipulated as a leader. I want to give a very special shout out to my amazing subscriber, IXL Multic, for bringing this topic suggestion to the channel in terms of how can we look at literary works and pull out some aspects of the art of leadership, how do we navigate leadership as individuals, and bring it into our everyday lives in terms of topics that we can discuss. Now, specifically, I'm going to bring in some high stakes, high pressured concepts here. And this particular book, these two stories I'm going to talk to you about today, definitely talk about that quite a bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go into the two stories and talk to you about how manipulation took place, so that by the end of this video, you should have a couple of aspects of conversations that you may notice, depending on what's going on with you specifically, that may indicate that you might be in a position of being manipulated by someone else as a leader. I don't want you to do that. Now, there's two stories we're going to talk about today, specifically in a very brief format. This is a live video, so bear with me. The audience will join in just a few moments, but I want to give you some context before they join. First is the story called The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. And then I want to give you some insight into Andrew Carnegie in terms of what they did specifically to manipulate the people that were working with them. And these are the things I want you to keep in mind of situations that you just want to really be careful of. I will tell you this. When you are in a leadership role, and many of you that are subscribed to my channel or follow my content or are my clients, you all are truly the exception. You are the exception that we need in the world today, especially as it relates to being leaders. However, what happens with that, depending on where you are, sometimes people will see that bright shining light from you and they will try to take advantage of you, which is the reason why I want to bring in especially the topics that came up that I learned from listening or watching these two scenarios play out, so that you're not the person that's being manipulated. Now, I want to say hello and welcome to those of you watching the live today. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you are joining from today. And let me also know, have you ever felt like you were being manipulated as a leader? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Let me know if that's ever happened to you before. It's happened to me, and I really resonated with some of the situations that came up in these two stories I'm going to talk about today. I want to say hello to Purple Liss. Hope you're doing well today. Welcome, welcome. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from. And if you've ever felt manipulated as a leader, we're going to dive into some literary works today. And once again, special shout out to IXL Multic. Friend, we can cover a lot from this particular book and many of the other books that you mentioned. So we're going to dive definitely into some leadership lessons here today. If you are ready, definitely give this video a thumbs up. This is going to be a bit of a unique video for the channel. So let me know how you like it. Let me know if it resonates with you. Let's talk about the story specifically. Let me give you some insight. Number one, The Prince is a book by Niccolo Machiavelli. It was published in 1513. I have not read the book in its entirety. I know IXL Multic had to read it for his educational program he's in. I watched a video by Dr. Aiden, and I have not been able to link his channel into the description here on the live because I'm on my cell phone, but I will do that later this evening as soon as we're finished so that you can take a look at it if you'd like to. But his name is Dr. Aiden, and he gave a very brief summary of the prince in terms of what happened in the prince, what is the prince about, and etc. When I read the prince, I noticed a correlation between what happened in the prince to what happened with Andrew Carnegie. And I said, this will be interesting for my audience to really think about, especially as it relates to this, specifically to avoid being manipulated. I want to say hello to Ariane. I believe that's it. Ariane Diamond. Hello, welcome, welcome. Hey, you're so beautiful. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Now, let's go into these stories. Let's go into these two stories so you all know what happened, what's the context, and what can you learn from this video today. You want to get some pen and paper and take some notes on this one for sure. So everybody watching live, I am going to share with you overall what happened in the story. So bear with me. It's going to be a little bit more talking today, but you're welcome to interact with me in the chat, and I definitely will respond to you in a moment. The first story, as I mentioned, is The Prince. That is by Niccolo Machiavelli. And to give you some context of it, at that time, Machiavelli was trying to get a job, was in some different types of political situations, and he wanted to give some insight for whoever was going to be the new prince of that particular region of Italy and in Spain, that area. So he felt like Cesare Borgia was going to be the best person specifically for this role as the prince. So he wanted to provide him with some insight, some things to consider as he is leading a kingdom of people. Now, what about this turns into manipulation? I'm going to tell you the story, and you let me know in the comments below. What are some things you thought about as it relates to manipulation? I want to say hello to Alien Dog. How you doing today? And Adrienne Diamond, thank you so much for your compliments. I appreciate you, friend. This is what happened. Israeli warrior, hello, welcome, welcome, says, what are we talking about? Okay, I'm going to go into this really quickly so we can go into the story. So Israeli warrior, we are talking about how you can avoid being manipulated as a leader. There are two specific stories I'm going to talk about very briefly. One of them was requested by one of my amazing subscribers in terms of how you can pay attention to certain things that happen to you as a leader to avoid being manipulated. That's what we're talking about here today. So if this sounds like something that is of interest to you, you absolutely want to subscribe to this channel. This is the only channel on YouTube that focuses in on high stakes, high pressured situations and helping you to be able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure in a live format. This is the only one on YouTube. So this is the best place for you to be. Back to the story. What happened is we have this book that Machiavelli put together, said, these are the guidelines. These are the guidelines a prince should be able to do to truly influence and impact the people that they are leading. Now, the storyline that happened here is that there was a lot of unrest in Romania. And if I get something incorrect about the story, I apologize for everyone that lives in that area, but I'm going based off what Dr. Aiden mentioned in his dictation of the story. But what happened is Cesare found someone named Ramiro de Orco, and he wanted this person who happened to be a bit more ruthless, maybe not as nice to people, to basically go to this part of Romania to bring about some stability, but stability with force to that region so people would calm down. So what happened? Ramiro did exactly as he was told by Cesare, and he went there with force and was very cruel to the people that were in the area. He was not nice to them. He was ruthless and very, very rough with the people there. So the people of this area, they complained and they didn't like it. They didn't like the way they were being treated by Ramiro. And Cesare obviously sent Ramiro there because, one, Ramiro was very good at what he did, being mean to people, not being nice to people. And he sent him there to basically manage this unrest and do whatever he needed to do to manage this unrest so that Cesare could handle it later. Now, what Ramiro did not know was that this situation was going to end poorly for him. If you know what happened to him, put it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. But I'm going to share it with those of you who did not know what happened. Once they were able to get some unrest taken care of, right? remember, Cesare, I believe, sent Ramiro there to bring order to the Romanian region and do it in a very forceful, not so nice way. Okay, he was not nice to everybody. What happened? Okay, the next thing that happened, Cesare was able to get Ramiro, and he ended his life. I'm not going to say anything graphic, but if you look at the story of it, it was very much of a display of ending his life. I think that's the best way that I can say it. And he did it for everyone to see. Now, why do I mention manipulation here? Think about the backstory in terms of what the intent was. Remember, at the very beginning, Cesare wanted to have Ramiro to go to this area of Romania to bring order. Even if it's through cruelty, being mean to everyone, he wanted him to bring order. So he did what Cesare wanted him to do. But Cesare saw that everybody was upset. So Cesare wanted to look like the prince, the one that was going to end this cruelty, end the cruelty of Ramiro del Orco, even though he sent him there. He wanted to appear as if he was the one that ended all of this nonsense. And so he ended the life of Ramiro. That's the first story. So let me go into the second correlation that I had when I was listening to this story, because I thought to myself, that's pretty unfortunate. This person was good at what they did. Specifically, they were very good at being mean, and there's people out there like that. But their life was ended because they basically did what they wanted to have completed, and now there was no use for them. That person, Ramiro del Orco, was definitely manipulated for sure. Let me go into one more story before I tie this into how this can impact you as a leader. Now, when I read this story, or when I was listening to this story rather, it reminded me of what happened here in the United States. Many of you may be aware of the name of Andrew Carnegie, and there's a lot that anyone has to offer to a country and etc. I'm specifically talking about manipulation, okay? I'm not necessarily saying everything was bad, but this situation that I'm highlighting to you was not ideal. What happened in the 1800s? Well, first, let me back up. For those of you who do not know who Andrew Carnegie was, he was one of the very, very important individuals that played a huge role in the Industrial Revolution here in the United States, especially as it relates to the expansion of steel. Now, what happened is in the late 1800s, Andrew Carnegie had a steel factory, and there was a lot of people working, etc. And with any business, they try to cut overhead, try to reduce costs. Well, they didn't do it quite the nice way. Right? So what happened, if you don't know the story, I watched The Men Who Built America, and I actually enjoyed watching that because it gave me a lot to think about in terms of how the country was founded, how politics was shaped, and just how everything came together. So that's my reference in terms of what happened. But of course, there's all variations to those stories. I didn't live during that time, but I'm just telling you what I noticed when I was watching the actual series by the History Channel. What happened is in the late 1800s, it was a similar situation. So listen to the story and let's think about, this sounds find out what part of it sounds a bit similar to Cesare and Ramiro. Let me know. What happened is that they were trying to cut overhead. They wanted to make as much money and as much profit as they possibly could, like any other business at that particular time. However, what happened is there was a person named Henry Frick that partnered with Andrew Carnegie. Now, Henry Frick was not nice. Henry Frick was a not nice individual and was, I would say, similar to probably Ramiro del Orco, probably different, of course, but he wasn't nice. Okay, he wasn't nice. Now, Andrew Carnegie had a conversation with him, very vague conversation, basically telling Henry Frick, I need you to handle this. I need to cut wages, and we need everybody to work more. How many of you would want to work more and be paid less? Nobody would. Nobody would want to work more and get paid less. But that's exactly what Andrew Carnegie wanted Henry Frick to do. Now, so what happened? Andrew Carnegie went to Scotland, and was in a whole nother continent, while Henry Frick was at the steel factory, basically making life very, very hard for everybody else as it relates to how they're living. Making the workers work extra hours, making them their pay half of what they were getting paid. And the workers, of course, for every reason, was really upset and mad. It became what? Unruly. And Andrew Carnegie told Henry Frick, do what you have to do. Just take care of, just handle it in the way you do it, right? So what happened is there was a homestead massacre. A lot of people died in the late 1800s. Henry Frick received some notification, I guess, there were a couple individuals called the Pinkertons that came into town that basically was going to put the employees in the steel factory, and they were not going to leave and not go anywhere. Well, what happened? A lot of people died. For all of this, for works. And what happened after all of that? Okay, listen to the correlation. Andrew Carnegie came back from Scotland after all these people died at his factory. Henry Frick was being mean to them because Andrew Carnegie wanted him to be the bearer of bad news, to get these people to be at a place where you're working longer hours and I'm going to pay you less money and you're just going to work. I don't care if you die. When Andrew Carnegie came back, he fired Henry Frick from the company to make it appear as if he did not know what was going on, and he had to fire Henry Frick and get him out of the company. So let's think about both of these stories really quickly. Let me know in the comments below, what did you see as the correlation between these two people? I'm going to tie it up in just a second, but I want to go to the chat really quickly. ACGB2044, high five, friend. Good to see you. How are you doing today? ACGB2044 says, hi, how are you? I'm sorry I haven't been here. I'm in recovery from total knee replacement surgery. I'm sorry to hear that. Slow process, but thanking God, absolutely. Still keeping up with work emails. I miss your lives. Well, thank you, friend, and wishing you a speedy recovery from your knee replacement. I know that is a lot that you have to deal with, so I appreciate you watching the lives and miss you being here as well, friend. Now let's talk about these two stories I shared with you. What did I learn from these two stories? I learned that you can be someone, a leader, that is very good at what you do. Very good at what you do. And if someone decides they want to send you into chaos, a mess, fix this is a disaster, I don't know what to do, be careful. Be very careful. You do not want to end up in a situation. Of course, you won't be in a situation like Ramiro de Orco. Okay, that's not going to happen. But you don't want to be in a situation like Henry Frick, where you are fired even though you did exactly what that person wanted you to do. Now, I'll give you an example that happened to me personally. When I was in an executive role, I noticed this. There were some individuals that no one wanted to deal with. They were troublesome people, and I was the person that was supposed to fix it. It's happened to me multiple times in my career, so I understand the whole manipulation part of it, which is the reason why I want you all to not be manipulated. And this is why I want you to avoid being manipulated by paying attention to what I'm sharing with you. But I've been in situations like this also, where I'm very good at what I do. I can get things taken care of. I can handle very difficult conversations. I can handle difficult individuals. That is my gift. That's what I do. But I found myself in situations where people would take that for granted, or they would push me to say, can you please handle this person? You're so good at this. And I would handle and address the situation, and it would come back to give me some problems later on. And they would say, oh, well, we didn't mean for it to go this way or that way. And you feel like you're being manipulated. This is the reason why I mentioned at the very beginning of the live, all of you that are watching this channel or subscribe here, or my clients, you all are very exceptional, and you have a gift. You know you're able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure, or you're well on your way to doing so. But keep in mind, when you are so good at something, people will try to take advantage of it. Some people will celebrate it. You just have to be able to know the difference between the two. Remember, if we highlight those two scenarios from The Prince by Machiavelli and then Andrew Carnegie, what was the key thing that happened? What do you all think was the key thing that happened? Just put it in the comments below, but I'll summarize. What I learned is that both Cesare and Andrew Carnegie found two people that were ruthless, that were cruel, that would do their dirty work for them. When they found those two people that would do their dirty work for them, they told them, go do it. Go do it. I support you. I support you in handling that difficult situation. It's all right if you kill a couple of people or hurt them. It's okay. I just want to bring some order here. I need to bring order. Both of them did that to certain degrees. But then when everything went chaotic and people were all upset and thinking, no, 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 this is horrible. How can this person be hurting us? Each one of them, Andrew Carnegie and Cesare, found a way to get rid of the people that they wanted to do their dirty work for them, to make them look better, not the other people. Now, sometimes in leadership, and I'll mention about both of them in these scenarios, leaders can be very cowardly. How many of you have interacted with cowardly leaders? I have. Have you? Leaders can be very cowardly. And this is a prime example of a cowardly leader. A lot of times leaders will play politics like this to make you be the person that is doing the bad work, doing the hard stuff, but make them look really well when they fire you, get rid of you, or talk bad about you. This is the reason why I want you to avoid being manipulated as leaders, because this is something that can happen. If you are at a point in your career where you are very, 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 very accomplished and you do something exceptionally well and you handle your pressure very well, sometimes this can happen, friends. This can happen where people will manipulate you to doing something that they don't want to do because they don't want to look like the bad guy. And I want you to avoid that happening, which is the reason why I appreciate HISTORYwcased so much for bringing this up in terms of the title. But this was the very first story. There's so many things that I noticed in the story, The Prince, that we could talk about as it relates to leadership. But this was the very first portion of it. And I thought to myself, I need to share this with my audience because I want to make sure that you all are not being manipulated. So be real careful. Be very careful. We'll talk about a couple things that you can do when you feel like you're being manipulated. But let me go to the chat really quickly. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. James Freeman 892. High five, James. Good to see you, friend. How you doing today? James says, hello, friend. Hello, friend. Back to you. Okay, so let's say you are in a leadership role and you find yourself in this very, very precarious situation where you think they may be sending you to manipulate you to do their dirty work. What do? What would you do? Put it in the comments below. What would you do if you felt like that was the case? Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. Let me tell you a couple things as it relates to high stakes, high pressure situations and how you communicate, which is what we talk about here on this channel. Let me tell you what specifically I would highly recommend for you to do. I would sit there and think about exactly what is being asked of you. And if they're asking you to do dirty work or do hard things or etc., make sure you get some information in writing first. What is it specifically that you need me to do? Can you outline this for me? What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? I would try to get some information in terms of, well, when I do this, what happens next? What if people don't like it? What support am I going to receive at this time? Those were some important questions I would ask, because as I mentioned, I don't want you to be the person being manipulated and put off to the side once you've done what has been asked for you. Let me go to the chat real quickly. Stephen Donnelly 3921. Hello, Stephen. Good to see you, friend. High five. Welcome back. I know it's been a little while, Stephen. Stephen says, that's why I don't work a job. Too many narcissists in jobs from the top up. I'm a happy person staying at home and enjoying exercise. Laugh out loud. Absolutely. Stephen, that's really good because these are the situations. Stephen, legitimately, these scenarios, they do happen. And it was so interesting to me when I was reading it, because The Prince, as HISTORYwcased mentioned to talk about it today, The Prince was written in 1513. That same type of thing was going on in 1513. When I looked at Andrew Carnegie and the situation that happened there, that was the late 1800s. It's so interesting how both of those scenarios were basically doing the same thing. So you bring a good point. And I appreciate you so much for mentioning about just being able to exercise and enjoy that, because there are some challenging situations that we navigate as leaders. And it's very important for you to be able to pick up pretty quickly in terms of what happens when someone's trying to manipulate you so that you can avoid that from happening specifically to you. ACGB 2044 says, I would need to get clear what is expected of me. Outline, I would ask for HR to be with me. Fantastic. And I appreciate you mentioning that, because you do need to have that as a backup for you. I agree with ACGB so much, because a lot of times when these conversations are had, they are typically closed door conversations where it's just you and somebody else, and that's it. Or it might be another person possibly, but it's usually a closed door conversation that people don't want to write down or document. That's happened to me, which is the reason why I'm sharing it with you. Having HR support and knowing what is being outlined to you, or at least having that communication line open, will help you to avoid being manipulated as well. So ACGB, I appreciate you for mentioning that, because this is a reality. People will talk to you about, this is what you can do as a leader, this is how to build your leadership skills and leadership development. But the gap that I have noticed is that people do not talk about situations like this. And this, believe it or not, is a reality. You can definitely be like Stephen Donnelly and enjoy exercising, and not deal with anybody, which is not a bad idea, by the way. But some of you may be in leadership roles, you may be in organizations, or you may be in your own businesses or doing something else where you're having to interact with a lot of people, and you still have to be very, very careful of your skills. Even when you are in a consultant role, someone may hire you to help them figure out this mess. Well, make sure the expectations, everything is documented, as ACGB mentioned. It's clear expectation. We know what is going to happen here, and let's make a plan. Always plan for the best case and the worst case scenario. Most of the time when you have those closed door conversations where people are asking you, can you do this? Can you go talk to him? Can you go talk to her? Can you go talk to them? Can you kind of figure out what's going on? Those are the conversations you have to be mindful of, and just protect yourself at all times. Just as it is with anything else in life, especially as a professional, be helpful, but you have to always protect yourself at all times, because things can go south. You don't want to end up like Henry Frick. You don't want to end up like Romero del Orco. Now, before I go and finish this up, now, did those two individuals do mean and cruel things? Yes, they did. And they did not deserve to do that. I'm not giving them any credit on that end whatsoever, because they did mean things and horrible things. But it's important for us to understand the backstory to see how they were manipulated to do something that the leader simply was a bit more cowardly, and they did not want to do it because they did not want to look bad in front of everybody else. That's why you have to be very, very careful of what people are saying verbally, and then what their nonverbal gestures, their facial expressions, all the things I talk about here on the channel in terms of reading people, what they're really trying to say. And of course, being able to have a conversation with me or with any of us here on the channel about what are some situations you've experienced specifically where you felt like you were being manipulated in the roles that you were in. This is how we learn, and this is how we grow, and this is the reason why I am building the largest high-stakes, high-pressure communication content library for leaders on planet Earth, because these type of conversations are not common conversations. People are not talking about this, and I appreciate IXOMultic so much for this, because this topic, we've talked about manipulation here on the channel many times, but it was it was insightful to be able to bring in a literary work, as he mentioned, and then my basis of being here in the States in terms of what I've seen, and say, oh, I see how people manipulate other people, and I've had it done to myself before. I see they try to do it because they're cowardly. they don't want to do the dirty work. They want to make it look like you did it. And then when they get rid of you, they want to look like they're the one that saved the whole planet. You have to be careful of those type of things. Okay, Stephen Donnelly says, are you still an executive? I think you mentioned you are not. What you like to do now? Yes, so I'm an executive in my business now. I'm not in an executive role at the moment. I have been in senior executive roles for the past 20 years, and Stephen Donnelly, you probably can attest to that. I enjoyed my time. I learned a lot, but everybody gets to a point when you are in an executive role where you think of what's next. And this is something that a lot of times executives don't think about, is what can I do with my career after this? Many people want to stay in the W-2 world and they want to stay working for an organization, etc. For me specifically, Stephen, I work specifically in my business, Excite Excellence Incorporated, and provide executive coaching and consultation services to my audience. And if anyone wants some support and they're at a point where they know the way they're communicating is not the way they need to communicate, maybe you're in a highly visible role. You're going to be on social media a lot more. You're going to be in media interviews. Maybe you're navigating presentations where you don't want to freeze in front of everybody else or be the person that can't respond back when you don't know the answer to it. That's my expertise, especially in those very hard and complex situations. So that's what I do. That's what I do as a business. I'm an executive in my business, but I've actually worked as an executive, a senior executive, for over 20 years. And yes, it's a great environment, but this is why I'm sharing with you these stories, because it's happened to me. It's definitely happened to me. I've been in those situations where I've been in the Henry Frick's situation, not being mean to people. But when you find that you're very gifted in doing hard things, which many of you are because you watch this content and you've already been in places in your roles where you've dealt with very hard situations, where people will sometimes use that against you or use it as leverage to their own benefit to manipulate you. A couple things we've talked about on the lives in the past has been the difference between manipulation and influence. And manipulation, as I've highlighted a couple times before, is using someone to benefit one other party, not themselves. That's manipulation. Versus influence, which can be positive and it can be negative, impacts someone to do something. It could be good, it could be bad. The scenarios I shared with you today specifically are directly tied to manipulation. Be very careful, regardless of your leadership role or where you're at. This goes for anything. If you get the sense that someone is wanting you to do something that's a bit harder, but there's no support if things go bad, there's no support if the outcome is not as you had anticipated for it to be, this is when you potentially are being manipulated. Especially if the person does it on purpose and then you suddenly find yourself in a situation where you've been cast aside or talked bad about and etc. I've seen it happen too many times, friends, where people will be in situations just like that, where they'll have conversations, they'll interact with other people, they'll do the dirty work. And as soon as they do the dirty work, the leader wants to look like they are the king or the queen of the castle, and they have saved everyone, and they will immediately get rid of the person that they hired to do the dirty work so that they look good. Remember, 1513, this happened with the prince. Late 1800s, it happened with Andrew Carnegie and Henry Frick. And I know it happens now all the time. It's happened to me in the past. It's happened to many people I know. And if you have any other stories that you know of, feel free to put them in the comments below, because I appreciate you all so much. This is how our channel grows, by different insights that we all have. For instance, IXO Multic enjoys literature. This was a great segue into how to avoid being manipulated. If you have any topics that you are dealing with or scenarios that you find are very complicated or very frustrating, please let me know. I'm here to support you any way that I can. I will do a video shout out just for you and we'll talk about it. Most of my audience watches the replays, and when people watch the replays, this is how we learn and this is how we grow. So anything you have that you're dealing with that's hard and challenging, please come to me with the hard things. I can't say I enjoy them, but that's my expertise because I've dealt with so much of them. So let me know what you're dealing with. Let's talk about it. Let's help everybody else across the world navigate some of these very, very, very challenging waters that come up as being individuals that are able to communicate in very high stakes, high pressure situations. All right, Stephen Donnelly says, at least you're helping people. I used to help elderly people, but I didn't like answering phone to office. They were asking me to do extra work against the contract. And Stephen, people will do that. They will do that. The interesting part is that at least you recognize it. Okay, because many people, Stephen, they do not. What they will do is that they will just keep working, and then find themselves burnt out, and they're wondering why. Why? Because they're at a place where they are doing work outside of their contract. And the sad part about it, Stephen, specifically, is when you are that person that says, wait just a second, time out. I understand that these are the roles of my contract, but you have me doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, and P. We need to talk about this because this is not exactly what this contract says I need to be doing. Then sometimes people say, okay. And they try to scale back. So you have to be careful. People will manipulate you in that way also. And I appreciate you, Stephen, for bringing it up because it happens. It happens a lot where people will ask them to do things that are outside of their scope of whatever they agree to. And you don't want to be that person that continues to do that is being manipulated. All right, Richard Smith. Hello, the second high five, Richard. Good to see you, friend. How you doing today, Richard? Richard says, happy Wednesday, buddy. Greetings, peace, and love from Northeast Ohio Flowers. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. And good to see you here also, friend. We've talked about a lot. We had a different type of live today where we talked about one literary work and then one story that we know of as it relates to avoiding manipulation. For those of you just joining, I'll give you a brief summary, but this is definitely a live you want to take a look at to avoid being manipulated. We talked about, first, IXO Multic gave this as a topic suggestion for The Prince, so I appreciate that. We talked about literary work specifically called The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. We talked about how manipulation happened with Cesare and also with Ramiro, what happened and what you need to avoid as a leader to make sure you're not being manipulated. And then I shared with you about Andrew Carnegie and Henry Frick in terms of what they did, what happened with them that was very similar to Cesare and Ramiro as it relates to manipulating people. You do not want to be the person being manipulated, and I'm hoping that after listening to this, you will think of things a bit differently, be a bit more cautious, and think about some of the insights that were shared by ACGB 2044 and Stephen Donnelly as it relates to being in those situations and how you navigate them. Okay, Stephen Donnelly says, do you think AI will take over slave labor? And Machiavelli is a legend. The one I know anyway, he was a philosopher in the woods. So that's great. I appreciate you mentioning that. So first question you asked about AI taking over slave labor. Probably not. I don't think that will. I don't want any slave labor, but at all. But I don't think AI is going to take over as many things as people think that it will. I believe initially coming out, there's a lot of things that AI can do to help make all of us more efficient. I use AI every single day. I'm sure many of you do also. But there's still some aspects of it that people just simply need to be present. You need to have that human connection. That's in my very humble opinion, Stephen. Let me know what your thoughts are, friend. And in terms of Machiavelli, so there's a lot of things, and you mentioned it's a legend. I have heard of the name before, and I know this is a bit off topic, but I appreciate Stephen for mentioning it up. I've heard of it before, and I've heard of the name. I heard of The Prince, but I have not read it, which is the reason why I did a summary of Dr. Aiden. I'll put that in the link below in the description so you can watch it. It was just a very brief video overview of the book. But the reason why people talk of it as, or speak of it as a legend, because some of the things that he mentioned in the book are, I would, if I had a good summary, I would say these are the very beginnings of how people function in politics. And politics itself can be very helpful if policies are right. It can be catastrophic also. And there is definitely a game that people play. And what I learned from the prince when I was listening to the dictation of the story was that there are certain things that Machiavelli felt that were very important for Cesare to be able to do as a prince. Now, there are certain aspects of the topics that were mentioned that I completely disagree with. I don't think are absolutely necessary in terms of how you deal with people. I have a couple quotes that I wrote down for future lives to talk more about it. But there's several aspects of it that I don't believe in, but there are some aspects of it that are very interesting in terms of how do you really influence other people when you are really navigating the game of politics and leadership. Stephen Donnelly says, I agree on the AI thing you're saying. Yes, I do. I believe initially everybody thought AI is taking over. Everything's going to be AI. Everything's going to be AI. But now that we're in it and we're working on it and we interact with it every single day, I don't believe it's going to take everybody's jobs. I don't personally foresee that. I do believe that there are some concerns about data centers. I know many of you probably have heard that. I've heard a lot about it here recently in terms of data centers and etc. and how people are being impacted because their homes are being taken away because they are going to be having a data center in their backyard and etc. But that's just something that you could definitely talk about in another live. But I agree with you, Stephen. Also, I don't think AI is going to take over. I don't think AI is going to take over everything at all. I don't think so. Let me know what questions you all have as it relates to very high stakes, high pressure communication topics that you're specifically navigating. If you like this content, this is a bit of a different video specifically for the channel because we did talk a bit more about a literary work. I typically do not do that, but IXL Multi brought in some really great books to review, and they're very helpful to bring in how we can really learn from literature in terms of how to be better leaders. All right, Stephen Donnelly says, COVID didn't change anything. A lot of people just went straight back to the system they hate. Laugh out loud. That's a good point. And you see that happening now because when COVID happened, a lot of people thought of life differently. And that goes across the entire planet Earth. They thought of life differently. They said, I don't want to live this way. Why do I have to live like this? And they changed the way they function. But then, as you mentioned, over time, people are going back to their old ways in terms of the system. I have to go back and do this. I have to go back and work. I have to do etc. and all this. And that's a good point. And I believe a lot of times situations and circumstances will happen, but everyone, and this is from my perspective as someone who has a degree in public health, everyone goes through stages of change. There may be certain stages of change that take you time to go through. You may find yourself in a good place where you say, I actually am ready to make this change. I'm really ready to make this change. But then in actuality, you're not. Everybody's different in terms of when they are fed up or when they are tired of being in the system, so to speak. ACGB 2044 says, I enjoyed this. Stories help me to relate to the topic. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for mentioning that. And thank IXL Multi because he brought this up. He brought it up about being able to look at literary works in terms of art and leadership. And of course, I'm going to bring in high stakes communication in there for sure. There's, especially when it comes to leadership. But I'm glad the stories were helpful. There was a couple other stories that he mentioned also that I'm going to take a look at as we evolve with the channel. There's definitely a lot more things that I'll be doing here. Bear with me this week. I'm trying different aspects of recording and etc. For instance, today I don't have my ring light on. I hope everything looks visually okay. On Friday, I'm probably going to record from one of the webcams that I have. I'm trying some different things out. I'm working on building my studio. Many of you see I'm in a different type of, a bit of a different setting now. And I'm doing this for you all. There's a lot that I want to share with you all. Just as we talked about stories, there's people in real time that I want to show you videos and clips of things that are going to be a bit more pre-recorded that can help you to be able to communicate under pressure and notice when someone is about to lose it and how you can navigate those situations. But all that comes up with developing and bringing up my studio, which is what I'm working on very diligently here. So now I'm working for you. I'm working to get things together. I truly am going to build the largest high stakes, high pressure content library here on planet Earth. I'm going to do that. So I want to make sure I put as much content out there as I can for all of you. Okay, Stephen Donnelly says, thanks for answering. Absolutely, Stephen. Thank you for the dialogue. You have some really great questions as always, and some definitely aspects for us to consider as we're navigating not only life in general, but also being humans. Stephen Donnelly says, you deserve to be monetized. Nice chatting with you. Godspeed. Well, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that, friend. It will happen at some point. Right now, we are so close to 1,000 subscribers. I am just completely honored just to be a part of all of my subscribers' journey. And I appreciate you for giving just wonderful feedback and being here. ACGB, Stephen Donnelly, Richard Smith, you all are always so very supportive of the channel, and I appreciate you and the nice dialogue that you provide to the audience as well. I am planning on sending a post out to see what you all want to do when we reach 1,000 subscribers. It's coming up quickly. I don't know where we're at right now, but it's coming up quickly, and I do want to be able to do something special for the audience when we meet that very, very big milestone. YouTube is a lot different compared to other platforms as it relates to subscribers. When you're first starting out, when you gain traction, things move a bit faster for you. But when you're first starting out, getting to 1,000 is not the same as following somebody on Instagram, following somebody on TikTok, or connecting with somebody on LinkedIn. It's not as easy as that. It takes a lot more time to do that. And when you reach that milestone, it is a big milestone. It's a huge milestone for any content creator. Even if they have millions and millions and millions of followers, everybody started with 0. And so reaching that milestone is a huge, tremendous deal for me. And I appreciate you all so much. Stephen Donnelly says you need more people like the stream. You need people to like the stream algorithm tricks. There's a lot of things out there as it relates to live streaming on YouTube. Many of you know I've been on YouTube's live streamer research panel for the past year. I'm done with that now, but I learned a lot about live streaming and how they really are trying to make it more interactive for the audience. There's just a couple things that they're working on, but there are aspects of live streaming that are different. And I know that, which is the reason why I want to test out streaming from my webcam this Friday evening when I have a bit more time to spend with you all to see how it works out, because it could be a different experience. I haven't live streamed on a webcam before. I've only done it on my cell phone. So I'm curious to see how it works out. But there's a lot you can do on YouTube. There's a lot of aspects of the algorithm, as Stephen Donnelly just mentioned, that you have to take into consideration when you're trying to navigate how do you do things, what should you do, and etc. Just know I have a lot of content here, and there's a lot of changes that are going to be happening on the channel that you will see, and it is only for the better. I genuinely believe that you all will be very, very excited to see some of those changes, because it's going to help you communicate at that exceptional level. I'm not here trying to help people communicate average leaders. I want you all to be exceptional. Most average leaders, they know how to communicate, but they do not know how to do it under pressure. And they definitely don't know how to do it at the depth that I'm going to show you as soon as I get a couple things set up. There's just two more things I'm getting from my studio. And as soon as I get those 2 things done, you're going to see pre-recorded videos almost, hopefully, at the same amount of my lives during the week. I typically go live at least 7 to 8 times a week, and that's a lot for live streaming. And I've been doing that for over a year, which is why I have over 1,000 videos here that are dedicated to high stakes, high pressure communication. But once I get everything set up in my studio, you're going to see a lot more pre-recorded videos come up that I believe that you all will genuinely enjoy, and probably have a lot more dialogue to talk about also. All right, ACGB2044 says, great, I look forward to your channel upgrades. Yes, hang on for those reaction videos. Reaction videos are going to be very informative, and as the channel grows and when I start getting that aspect together, let me know if there's any leaders or people that have been on the news or in the community that you've seen that you like how they communicate. I'm going to pull out ways or share with you what they are doing that is making their message sound so impactful and so inspirational, so that when you as a leader are communicating with your teams or other individuals, you're able to pull some of those specific techniques that they're doing to help inspire other people. We're going to go into a lot of detail, and I appreciate your support. It should be a lot of fun. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. I have already a list of reaction videos ready that you'll probably say, oh, okay, I didn't really think about that. I have one that I saw today with Gary Vee that I'm not going to tell you it, because this one is going to be very interesting to share, because he has a different communication style, but it highlights what happens when you are triggered. And I think it'll be definitely a video that you all will want to laugh at. Stephen Donnelly says reaction videos are great and popular. Yes, Stephen, I know that. I will tell you this. When I did the presidential debate a couple years ago, and I did my reaction analysis of it, it was very short, but that gained a lot of traction on the channel because people are looking for trending topics. But I don't necessarily want to follow the trend, but there's just some things that are happening. Anything that talks about what's going on in the world and leaders and communicating, or even things that are going on in the news. It doesn't necessarily have to be politics. It could be just conversations people are having or discussions. It really does trend. It really does trend. And it makes it fun because people are able to see, oh, I see how if someone does this, they may be thinking something differently. I can share with you as much as I can. And of course, when I work with my clients in a one-on-one setting, I'm able to provide them with that direct support to make it more customized to them. There's only but so much I can do in front of the World Wide Web. But when you work with me directly, it's definitely at a different level to help you be truly exceptional. But I'm going to do as much as I can to show my audience across the world what it really means to communicate under pressure, and what are some strategies that you can actually visibly see people do that communicate under pressure in a very exceptional way. There's a couple people out there that are doing pretty well with communicating under pressure. I'm not going to say names yet. I have to build up some more content library on them, but I'm sharing this from just my own humble opinion, not biased either political party, but there's certain aspects that some people do really well and some people do not. Even content creators and etc. I want to make sure that I just want to help you all communicate at the absolute best level that you can, so that you truly do have a very unfair competitive advantage over everybody else in terms of how you communicate by following my channel and subscribing to the channel here. I truly, that is my mission. If I can help you stand out from everybody else and they say, you know what, we need Stephen, we need ACGB, we need Richard Smith, we just need them, that would just completely make my day. So I'm here to support you all any way that I can. Let me know what questions you have, any challenges you're dealing with. I will be live tomorrow morning, and I will see you all